and welcome to SureenaSpeaks, and in this video I want to share with you my thoughts and opinions on the criteria for pharmacist provisional registration, which the policy on that came out earlier this week. Now I want to make it very clear that this video contains my thoughts and opinions. It does not represent or reflect any other organisation, company, person, animal, mythical creature, nothing else. They are my thoughts and opinions, and also that they are just opinions. They are not facts. So some you may disagree with, some you may agree with, but they are just opinions. Now that I've made that clear, what are my opinions? First and foremost, I think any decision that was going to be made for pre-reg 2020 was always going to be a tough one, and it's unrealistic to think that there would be a solution which would work for everyone's individual circumstances and situations. Finding one solution to fit for all was unrealistic to ever happen. And so I do understand the reasoning behind having a provisional register. And I remember, I think it was in March when the idea of a provisional register was first announced. That in itself came with a whole bunch of mixed emotions. But personally, I do understand why the idea and why it's most likely that a provisional register is on the cards for students. I also think it is a good idea that the exam will be moving this year onto as an online assessment. Most likely it will be moved as an online assessment. Again, I understand the reasoning behind that. Maybe not everyone will agree that an online sitting is the best fit, but I think given the situation that we're in, given that we are in, as I'm sure you've heard many times, this unprecedented times, in these unforeseen circumstances, I think that probably is the right direction. Upon reading the policy, I think the thing that really shone out to me, and which I'm really in favour for, is the idea that provisional pharmacist, provisionally registered pharmacist, who I'm going to term as PRP, that PRP will be under the guidance of a senior pharmacist. And I love that idea. And if anything, if I think back to my own days of being a newly qualified pharmacist, and when I was a day one pharmacist, I would have loved to have had someone who was my designated senior pharmacist who I could go to for any questions or queries. Of course, I still had my tutor and I had my peers, but knowing that I had that designated person who, when I called them, they would have to pick up and help me out, that would have been such a great support. And so, if anything, I think that idea shouldn't just be for 2020. I think that should be an ongoing thing. Again, my opinion, but I do like the idea of a senior pharmacist and the guidance that they could then give to that PRP. What I don't really understand, or what I disagree with, and what I think a bit more clarity is needed, is with regards to retake students. Why students who have failed the exam previously aren't eligible to be a PRP. Also, I think more clarity is needed on a student who has finished their pre-reg in a different year, had completed their 52 weeks, had been signed off as competent, and who technically would have been sitting their first attempt at the exam this year, as to whether or not they are eligible to be a PRP. From what I've read and from my understanding, and having spoken to other people as well, it almost appears as though those individuals aren't eligible to be on the criteria, but I could be mistaken, and therefore I think more clarity on that is needed. And with regards to retake students, again, like I said, I don't quite understand why they aren't eligible to be on this criteria. I guess one argument could be that maybe they've been out of practice for a while, maybe they haven't been working in a pharmacy, and so it would be a risk to patient safety if suddenly they were a PRP. I guess my argument to that would be is that technically those students would still be sitting the exam later this year or next year, whenever that exam may be, but they will be sitting that exam. They will then potentially pass that exam, and so they will go from being a pre-reg to being a pharmacist anyway. And in my mind, if they're a PRP who is under the guidance of a senior pharmacist to give that additional support, to give that additional guidance, to me actually, I think that's more in favour of patient safety. Again, just my opinion. I guess you could almost compare it to a driving exam, in that someone who has never sat their driving exam before, they're given a limited licence to sit behind the wheel with an instructor next to them. Whereas someone who has attempted their driving exam before and failed it, they're not being given that limited license, even though they've had a lot of experience already because they've gone through that process already, that process of having the assessment. And so putting that into this context, again, in my mind, especially if they have been continuing their practice within a pharmacy, in my mind, it makes sense that then from a patient safety aspect, they are too eligible to be on a PRP. And so if by any chance the GPHC are watching this, I know there are so many students who would really benefit from hearing that reasoning, hearing that rationale behind why they're not being put onto that criteria, why they aren't eligible to be a PRP. I've had messages from so many students who are absolutely heartbroken and devastated by this, and understandably so. And a lot of them are feeling alone in this, and a lot of them are even questioning, should they even continue with their studies? Which from my point of view is really heartbreaking to read and to hear the stories of these people. I knew of one student last year. She was an amazing student. She had such a wealth of knowledge, and I would have put money that she was going to pass the exam. She failed by 1 mark. 1 mark. And honestly, I'm not joking when I can say to you, she had such a high level of knowledge. It's just sometimes we don't do well in an exam situation. Sometimes the pressure or the stresses of an exam get to us, and so we have a bad day. And I'm reading messages from so many students who were in a similar situation where they missed out by 1 or 2 marks, and I think it's very unfair in a way that those students are then not eligible to be a PRP because 1 or 2 marks. So, like I said, I think if there could be more reasoning, if there could be a rationale given to these students who are in this bracket about why they aren't eligible to be on that criteria, I think that would really help, because hearing some of your stories and the troubles you've been through, the stresses you've been through, and then to hear and have this put on top, I can't imagine what you're going through, to be honest. And a key message which I want to say to you is that please don't feel like you are alone, because you are not alone in this. I'm getting messages from so many people. There's so many people that are in this situation. Connect with each other. Pharmacy is such a small world. You and yourselves can build such a great support network. Reach out to other pharmacists, reach out to technicians, reach out to anyone else within this pharmacy world. You can reach out to me. You can always contact me across my socials, but please do not feel like you are alone in this, because you most definitely are not alone. If you agree with what I'm saying and if you like what I am saying, then please do share this video across your socials too. Please do like, share, subscribe, and you can always contact me across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I will always try my best to reply back to you. But just please remember that you aren't alone in this, and I will do my absolute best to try and get you through that pre-reg exam. And hopefully there will be a bit more clarity given from GPHC regarding the reasoning behind who is eligible on the criteria and who isn't eligible on the criteria. And if by some divine miracle that reasoning could be overturned, and that retake students or students who had completed their pre-reg year could also be placed as a PRP, again, from my perspective, I think that would be so beneficial on so many different levels. But again, just my opinion. So thank you very much for watching. Do remember to keep revising. Don't stop your revision. Okay, we don't know a date of when the exam is, but remember, you're not always just revising for an exam. You're revising to be a confident and competent day one pharmacist, whether that be being on the provisional register or not being on the provisional register. You need to keep your knowledge up to date so that you can serve your patients in the best way that you can. So I do hope that you did like this video. Thank you very much for watching, and happy revisings.